So, of course, being affected by the financial crisis, and obviously a lot of workers working for the companies producing for the export were out of job. And of course, out of them, a lot were originally from the countryside. So obviously they went back to the countryside. So in this way, you see, being the trade promotion organization, and we discuss how we can further help the Chinese company who are engaged in export to continue their business, or even have a less effects by the financial crisis. So we, at that time, you see, first we called on our national conference, participating by our various subsidiaries, trying to set up the stage for the company to mitigate their effects by setting up those exhibitions on light industry, textiles, metallurgical, electromechanicals, and also some others in various places in China. Because you see, most of the production by these companies were for export. Then with the affection, then we try to divert them to the domestic market. And I think you see it was effective. And really you see there were not, or at least a lot of pile up in the warehouses of the exports were sold out after this exhibition. So this is one that we did. And also you see we, that is organized companies dealing with the export to try to go to the international markets to make an investment. Because we understand that even though we exported a lot, but most of the exports were produced by foreign invested companies in China, over 56% or something like that. So why? We thought at the time, why couldn't we do the same way? So we encouraged the Chinese companies to go to different destinations to make an investment in order to produce for export, either back to China, or even for the domestic market, or even to the markets nearby. So I think you see it starts to be that it show the positive effects right now, because obviously you see China has invested over 220 billion US dollars overseas right now, and of course comparing with the foreign investment in China, it's still very small, just 1/5. So I think this will be the future directions, that more and more Chinese companies will go overseas to make investment. Then apart from that, the third method that we did at that time is CCPIT signed an agreement with the China Export Insurance, Export Credit Insurance Company, helping those companies to avoid, companies dealing with the export, avoid those risks. Because you see, frequently than not, and the companies met such cases that they couldn't get back their exports. So by cooperating with the insurance company, then the insurance company first pay to the export company a certain percentage, maybe 80% or something like that. So if something happened, then it will be the responsibility of the insurance companies to try to retrieve back those funds that were not paid by the importers. So I think you see that helps a lot of SMEs in continuing their business. Then also apart from that, we organize training, then specialized exhibitions, and also organized called a promotional week in different countries, which are all effective. So anyhow, you see, what we did is try to adopt something that are corresponded to the time that is at that time. So I just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wang. Very interesting experience. By contrast, I'm anxious to hear what you did, Florence, a landlocked country which would have to be a little bit more innovative. But again, speak to what was the impact and how that affected your strategic direction as a TSI.
Thank you very much, moderator. Good afternoon to you. Greetings from Uganda and East Africa. The implications of the crisis on us were slightly different, I should say, especially in terms of how the TSI, the Trade Support Institution, responded. I want to state that at the time when the global credit crisis was happening, in Uganda, we are already facing a series of other challenges that were already kind of forcing us to wake up and see what we could do. We were at a time when the region had completed the transformation processes into a regional trading economic unit, the East African Community, which most of you are aware of. We were also at a stage when negotiations with the EU in terms of the economic partnership agreements and the preferential trade preferences that we're enjoying was coming to an end. And at the same time, the impact of climate change, especially for a country that is largely agriculture and export, were also beginning to bite. So we had a series of tumble-down effects that were coming together to kind of conspire against the trader, especially the exporter. And most of the exporters are SMEs. Normally in such changes, which constitute a kind of a shock, the response is that you will get many SMEs, companies, individuals, organizations that you hitherto didn't even think were clients coming in to inquire and seek for help and strategic direction. So we immediately saw an increase in terms of the visitors and inquiries that we were getting, an almost 30% increase in terms of people coming to speak to us and seek direction, cross-check what they are thinking. And so definitely that was an immediate stress on the internal capabilities and capacity of my trade support institution to respond in terms of internal competencies. And so therefore our reaction to this in terms of strengthening ourselves was to whip up an effort to strengthen the institution by recruiting and having more technical experts on board. I'm glad that we have a minister from Zambia, an ambassador from Zambia. Most African trade support institutions are not sufficiently resourced. So definitely there was a stiff call and challenge to our ability to give the correct and effective rapid response that the desperate companies were looking to us for. So we were unable to fully, immediately engage in the way my colleague from China did, but internally we were able to mobilize the agencies, associations, and speak to them in terms of strategic direction of the impacts on the different products. Because some of the impacts were direct to specific products. Even in agriculture, you have luxury products. So you had sectors like flowers, like cocoa to go and make chocolate. You had some specific sectors that needed strategic response. We, therefore, engaged the good counsel and services of CBI and ITC in training our technical officers, because we had to recruit new people. We recruited about 15 to 20 more staff, and it is so important that if somebody runs to you, you are able to give the right direction. So the competencies and the ability to have a team that is versatile, that is able to move ahead as the ears and eyes for the enterprises that are involved in export is so important. So on the issue of strategic orientation as well, we were able to, by coincidence, have a market survey done with ITC on 300 SMEs that were in export, specifically to find out how they were impacted by the global crisis. And some of the responses that we received from that survey were an indication that the traditional markets were shrinking, an indication that the regional markets were actually going higher, an indication that domestic demand was declining, and this is because Uganda is landlocked, yes, but we also have a lot of remittances that come in. Remittances are our single largest export earning. And so when there was this shaking in the EU and the USA, the remittances